Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to our exciting Back to the Future webinar on AI and test automation for business applications. This webinar is a collaborative venture between Forrester and Panaya. So let's have a quick introduction. My name is David Bini, I'm Panaya's CEO, and I'm so thrilled to have each of you join us today from various corners of the globe. In today's session, I have the pleasure to host an exciting Fireside chat with VP and Principal Analyst at Forrester, 𝐑𝐞𝐬𝐨. I hope I pronounced it right. Welcome, Diego.
Thank you. Very nice job. Thank you, Bini. Good to be here.
Thank you. So thank you all for being here with us today. Our focus will be on a hot topic today, which is the rise of AI and test automation for business application. So just before we start, a quick housekeeping rules that you should be aware of. Number one, all lines are muted, and this is for optimal sound quality. You should feel free to submit any question in the Q&A box, in the chat box. We will be looking into it during the session and trying to address it. And last but not least, please note that this session is recorded and will be available on Panaya website later on. So just before I start the chat with Diego, I would like to give those of you who are less familiar with Panaya a very brief insight into our company and our customer base. We are a global leader in SaaS, in software as a service, smart testing, and change impact analysis for business applications, focusing primarily on ERP and CRM applications, but can also support any business application. We've been around since 2006, helping thousands of organizations to change and test any application change in their ERP and CRM applications. We do that with zero time to change, with zero risk, and with zero defects. Among our satisfied customers, you can find many types of customers from various industries, names such Schneider Electric, Procter & Gamble, Sony Pictures, Shiseido, GE, Fujifilm, Home Depot, and many more. And one last slide before I turn to the chat itself with Diego is something that we are very proud of. Panaya continues to lead G2 also this quarter and is recognized as the market leader for testing. This achievement has been accomplished for the last 13 consecutive quarters. So as you can imagine, we are really proud of this great vote of confidence coming from our clients, coming from our business partners, and hoping to keep leading this category within G2. So with no further ado, Diego, once again, welcome. And thank you so much for joining our webinar. I will stop share my part here, and please feel free to give a brief introduction about Forrester, your role, and we can start the chat from there.
Thank you very much, David. Being in Forrester, I get to talk to many people, many companies, many end user clients. That's our job, right? And we produce data, of course, but together with data, we write about trends and we see where the markets are going. We make some estimations, predictions. Hopefully we always get them right, but if not, we get close. So let me give a little bit of a context for the conversation we're going to have. I'm very biased about how software is playing a key role in today's digital world and in today's digital organizations. And when you have a company that is now being run, which has at the core of its approach technology, and that technology is software, it needs a new operating model. The traditional operating model that we had when companies were not based on software, were not based on automation, was different. It was a manual approach. And today, with automation and with AI especially, and with autonomy, of course, each operating model the operating model in each company has to change. And what that means is, you need new processes, new practices. We need new talent. We need new ways of organizing teams. We need skills, but we also need new technology, more powerful technology that is starting to be infused with AI, which is bringing more automation. And that's why, with a lot of automation coming, testing can't stay idle, right? Testing has to change as well. Testing has to become more automated. Testing has to become more autonomous. And so I want to start with a very good note for testers, which is, people think that AI is going to take our jobs away, and generative AI especially is going to do everything from generating code to testing. Well, I tell you, one thing that I'm seeing, and we know, is that this new age of AI, and especially generative AI, where we have these, what we call in Forrester Turing bots, I'll talk about them later, hopefully, we need to test more, because the need for testing, as we generate more code, we're going to have more and bigger, broader needs for testing. It's like a zero trust. We cannot trust AI to do everything in the right way for us. Everybody knows about large language models and hallucinations, and guess what happens if you hallucinate in generating code? So that's my little kind of intro, David. Off to you for
so first
kicking
of all,
off the conversation.
That is great introduction, Diego. And for those of you that are joining now, you already get your first, I would say, statement from Forrester. The need for testing will increase, not decrease. So you're in the right place. So again, for those of you that are just joining, we started a webinar, and I want to say once again that you will be given the option to raise questions to Diego via the chat box. So feel free to submit them in the Q&A box below. So Diego, there are so many questions that I'd love to discuss with you, but let's start with the basics and talk about the complexities and challenges of testing in 2024. In your view, what do you think are the most pressing challenges that organizations will face in 2024 to achieve what we call a comprehensive test automation and continuous testing?
Yeah, well, I mean, clients and vendors altogether are challenged. I wouldn't say it's just the clients, because clients have demanding requests, right? And automation is the key word here. But let me share some data, right? I mean, as I said, Forrester is a research company, and data is one of the great things we do. Although quantitative data has always has to come with qualitative thinking, and the data you have to interpret as trends. And the biggest huge problem is, I've been writing about the testing market for the last 13 years or whatever it is, and the biggest challenge I see, and what makes me nervous, is that there's still a lot of manual going on. At the end of the day, at the top of everything testers still do, despite all the things we've been learning about DevOps, Agile, which really started pushing testing in a new direction, there's still too much manual, as you can see here from the numbers. In 2023, we picked five of the top options that they had out of many of the options that we presented in a question. So we picked in this case, the only always response, and manual testing is at the top, and everything comes like below that, which shows that still too many practices. The practices for achieving more automation needs to increase all over, right? In all the different types of testing. Testing is not just about unit testing. It's not just about functional testing. It's not just about API testing. It's not just about packaged application testing, but a mix of all those. And we need to improve. And I think getting these into these practices and improving is a hard thing for organizations. And it's important, right? That challenge is unfortunately also stopping us from increasing the levels of automation, right? If the practices for increasing automation are not sufficiently, clients are not sufficiently proficient at those practices, these are the results. The results are that automation percentages are still low, right? Which is reflecting, of course, well, if there's a lot of manual, we can't expect much more, right? So I think these are the top challenges for organizations. I would say is learning the basics, the practices, the new practices for being able to increase the levels of automation.
Okay, yeah, I can't I tend to agree. You know, those are indeed challenges that we also see, I would say, coming from our clients. I'm always amazed again about the manual testing percentages, but it's not only about the manual testing, as you described here. This is always a challenge, and I think that it's here to stay side by side with automation and AI, which we will discuss later on. So I would also mention that, you know, we do see more challenges with the increased complexity of ERP systems and business applications or packaged application, especially when there are so many critical business processes that are relying on those business applications, at least as we see as SAP, Salesforce, ServiceNow, Oracle, you name it. So when it comes to business applications and business process testing, Diego, how do you recommend organizations to prioritize their testing efforts to ensure a true coverage while maintaining efficiency?
Well, you know, the thing is that on top of these practices that you see here, there are some new challenges that packaged applications, SaaS business, SaaS business applications running on clouds, of course, bring more specific challenges, right? And so some of the, and these are not all of them, right? But most of the challenges that I think clients struggle with is you have to keep up with the continuous upgrades of these platforms, right? They all upgrade now, monthly, if not weekly, some of them even daily. And for clients to keep up with those upgrades and being able to retest everything is hard. And of course, it all goes down onto the automation thing, because if it was easy, then, in a press of a button, we could upgrade and we could test and we could make sure we have everything we needed. But that's not necessarily the case. The user interfaces of these business packages change frequently. Think about Salesforce, just as an example. They have proprietary extensions. They've got metadata that you might not know, the clients don't know much about. And even the vendors, not all the tools are actually good at keeping up with these changes and these frequent changes and upgrades of the systems themselves. The other issue has been that clients have started to use Agile and DevOps, right? The Jenkins of the world and all the other commercial products that work well with Java, with C++, with any of the new programming languages. But the platforms do not come with an out-of-the-box DevOps tool integrated, right? There are third-party tools that need to be developed. And you can also, try and do DevOps on SAP with Jenkins, but it's going to be a lot of work if you really wanted to go down that route. So that's an additional challenge. And clients now have starting to make that transition after trying and changing and transforming towards DevOps and Agile in the custom world. We're seeing much more of that now also in the packaged world, because they're saying, well, we haven't yet transitioned completely to Agile and DevOps, but in the custom world, we've learned quite a bit. We are doing, better in terms of continuous integration, continuous delivery. We want to do the same on packages, but the packages don't have the machinery yet. And so that's a challenge. Then there's a lot of heterogeneity that the enterprises have. No customer has only SAP or only Salesforce or only, Workday, or ServiceNow. Actually, you know what? They might have all four of those or five or more.
Cross-platform, multi-platform kind of play.
And now you go across the multi-platform thing, right? And that is a huge issue, exactly. The other big issue is that if if you're on a SAP or Oracle or some of these business packages, the reason is because you think that the platform addresses your processes and you don't really need to make many changes. But it turns out that changes are made. But in any event, the users of those platforms are more business type people than pure developers, right? You've got business analysts that would use an SAP and therefore have it's a different persona than a platform that is using a coding environment.
Absolutely.
And the scale is hyperscale. So not only, as you said, it cuts across different platforms, different packages, and clients might have all of them, but it also goes across clouds, different clouds. People are also multi-cloud. Nobody has just one type of cloud, Azure or Google or AWS or Oracle or IBM, but they actually have a multi-cloud environment. So now you can really think of all these additional complex at scale issues, and that makes it quite harder, I would say. Big challenge.
Definitely, it adds to the complexity. So, my next, I would say, my next question will be, I will give a little bit of context. We keep hearing about the challenges about, becoming more agile. You mentioned DevOps and, the connectivity and Git and etc. So everyone are talking about becoming more agile and with shifting left. In simple words, I would say being able to find the issues earlier in the process during the development cycle or jointly with the development cycle, and not to wait till the end when sometimes it can be very costly if you push all the testing to the end. So given the industry move in the last couple of years towards agility, including, I would say, a very aggressive introduction of agile platforms and processes, faster release cycles, working in sprints, and etc., how crucial do you find the concepts of shifting left in the testing processes? And to add on that is like, what are the benefits and challenges associated with adopting a shift left approach for staying, I would say, ahead of the curve in that matter?
Yeah, so in Forrester, I've been writing research around that, which is really talking about the way we've been calling it is continuous testing, right? And continuous testing is a continuous process that starts very early on in the life cycle. Shift left is exactly one of those key, principles and approaches. As you can see, continuous testing is about new practices. Continuous testing is about the new organization we talked about. Continuous testing is about modern technology foundation, right? To new tools and technologies. But you can see right here in this little box, shift testing left is one of the key, and I would say it's actually touches on the TDD and BDD or test-driven development, which are kind of new practices that we've been learning in the last few years with Agile coming along. But shifting testing is a key concept of saying simply, putting it in simple terms is, as soon as you start thinking about a new product, that's when testing starts to kick off, right? We want to test the idea right away. We want to test the design of it. We want to test the coding of it. We're just testing. We want to test the integration. We want to test at deployment. We want to even test in production, right? So it's actually going from shifting left to all the way shifting right as well. So this shifting left and shifting right becomes crucial in this new world of what I call a continuous testing. And also the technologies around this can't be the same because we do need more automation, right? There's an increased focus on automation. There's an increased focus on version control techniques and capabilities so that you can start connecting, the test case with the requirement and with the code that realizes the automation so that if you need to make a change. It
cannot be a silo anymore. Like everything needs
exactly.
to be yeah.
And you have it all there, right? And then you have to provision the environment very quickly. We're on cloud. We can't do that anymore. Like, sending a request and then having somebody respond after 2 weeks with the environment. That's not going to work anymore. And so all the activities at the end of the day really, are happening in parallel. They're not siloed. They're not happening in a stepped waterfall approach. They're all going on in a parallel way. And so I think this is it's a critical practice. And by the way, shift testing left is not even something that just came out recently with Agile and DevOps. It was part of some of the older standards as well. It's a good practice.
It's a good practice, and I would say echo what you said. I think that the importance of integrations and playing an open garden, I would say, kind of strategy, being able to integrate with the Jira of the world, the Git of the world, is becoming a mandatory if you really want as an organization to adopt, I would say, the shift left and the shift right. It cannot be a silo. We see it also coming from our clients, you know, the fact that they want requirements module to be fully integrated with the test management and test automation. And I would say also one word about the CI/CD. If you really want to achieve this continuous testing, this also becoming a crucial, I would say, factor to make sure that you have this continuous integration and continuous deployment plugged in very properly into the testing strategy that the organization would adopt.
Yes.
Okay, so moving to our next topic, which is a hot topic today. I think that everyone are talking about it. It's I call it AI or die. Okay, I don't think that there is a single conversation in the last couple of months that either if it's with a prospect, a client, or a partner that didn't ask us about what is your plan about AI and how AI is going to be integrated with testing solutions. So just to set the context around that, you know, our average customer, I would say on SAP, ECC or SAP S/4HANA, you name it, they would say that they feel that their SAP updates is always at risk. They would also say that we feel that we need more guidance with test coverage. This is on one end. On the other end, they believe that the AI promise can probably help with that, especially to tell them, you know, what will break, what to test, and what to automate. And Diego, as you know, Panaya, we infuse AI and machine learning for years now to support our change impact analysis and smart testing. However, I believe that most of these new technologies that are available today around AI and Gen AI will yield brand new use cases and implementation practices. So in your view, in Forrester's view, I'm curious to know, how do you see AI transforming the traditional ERP and business applications testing as approach?
Yeah, well, the first thing is that you mentioned, you know, we can't the last few months. I would say it's been the last year.
Yeah.
You know, ChatGPT just changed. I mean, it has a merit, right? Besides the merit is, from a technology perspective, large language models and generative AI have, the big merit it has. It's brought the discussion around AI in every corner of any organization, right? So if we were saying, well, you know, we should leverage AI because AI can help us, it's a tool, we should consider it a tool, it's a very valid and powerful tool. ChatGPT, large language models, starting the beginning of 2022, just kind of paved the way and made it easier for us to actually move into that direction. And of course, that happened with testing as well. And so as a matter of fact, all we're saying is now that AI and, you know, in general, machine learning and then even generative AI, right, which is even the further last step. But AI and machine learning has been infused in testing since, you know, years back. I wrote my first piece around how AI is impacting AI in 2019, and actually this is the figure I came up with at that point, and the use cases I was talking about. And some of these I was saying, well, you know, some of these things can be done already. Some of them are still kind of being developed because all those that were attached to natural language, for example, natural language wasn't great in 2019, right? We always kept natural language worked only if you had a very scoped, finite domain to work on. Otherwise, it wouldn't really be doing a great job. But today, guess what? We've got very strong linguistics with generative AI. So, and when we think about AI in testing, we shouldn't just think about generative AI, because it's AI, deep learning, machine learning. All these are little great technologies that can help us you know, achieve things like visual testing, can help us in the generation of API tests or generating even test cases, increasing capabilities in the automation. Before generative AI, I would say one of the biggest things AI and machine learning would do is help us even optimize the overall test process, make it more effective, right? Optimize regression and test executions. That was something you were already doing in, as a change in SAP. I remember those older days, and it was more machine learning. It wasn't generative AI for sure, right? And also leveraging data from production and being able to get the insights that could impact maybe what we need to test, how we could classify and cluster defects to improve mean time to repair, self-healing of tests. These are all great use cases, all tasks that have made AI better, I would say, made testing, better, right? And so and if you look at the whole software development life cycle, testing as always was the first area where the impact of AI was playing a role compared to the rest of the software development life cycle. So I'm all in Forrester. We strongly believe, and they know that AI is changing the way we do many things, including development and testing.
So it's definitely been around for the last years and not months. I think that the buzz and the amplitude of customers with the wave that ChatGPT as Gen AI brought in, I think it created a lot of excitement. I would say that when we say what to test or what to automate as one of the use cases for testing or for increasing testing coverage, we actually leverage machine learning and crowd wisdom in many applications to understand that we can rely behind the fact that we are telling a customer, this is what you need to test. So Diego, the question that is brought up is like, obviously there is an opportunity, okay? We are in agreement that there is an opportunity. Organizations must leverage that, but it also, I believe, brings some risk, right? Like, how you can tell that this AI, Gen AI, LLMs are really providing you with the right, I would say, data points for an organization to go now and rely on and take, I would say, a decision that this is the test coverage or test catalog that we need based on a machine. So the question is, how do you see the impact of Gen AI in specific, and what else it can bring to testing that additional AI and machine learning couldn't bring so far?
Right. So, and this is a question that comes from clients too, which is, okay, we've been talking about, and vendors come here and tell me that they're using AI and ML for testing, right? In the past years. The next question is, okay, but now there's all this big fuzz about generative AI. So we haven't even probably yet leveraged entirely AI and machine learning, and now we've got this other great technology coming. What can it do more than what we were not doing, more than what the vendors were not already proposing with AI and ML, right? What can generative AI do in addition,
right,
and better, right? So, well, the first thing is, and this is huge, which is, first of all, AI with generative AI, with the addition of generative AI to the traditional AI of deep learning, neural networks, and machine learning, and so forth. With the addition of generative AI, we can see now and say that the impact is not just on testing, it's not just on code generation, which is what everybody is looking at right now, right, as being important. Although the data does tell us that, interestingly enough, that the third most important use case of generative AI in the market is in the software development lifecycle. So the big point is exactly that. It impacts the entire software development lifecycle, and testing is part of that, right? So now it's not just testing that is leveraging AI, but it's the entire software development lifecycle. And so in Forrester, we've named this approach Turing bots, right? A Turing bot is an AI capability infused with AI, machine learning, and generative AI to give you an assistant or a code completion environment that can help you in every step of the software development lifecycle. And so you've got a Turing bot that can support you in the analysis and planning phases of the software development lifecycle. You've got one that can support you in the design. You've got one, of course, that can support you in the testing. That's what we're going to be talking, a little bit more about today. The testing, right? Besides the coding one. You've got a Turing bot that can help also on the generation of infrastructure as code, or in implementing the DevOps principles at the infrastructure level. And you've got a Turing bot that actually can oversee the entire software development lifecycle, all the data that is being generated from the time we build a backlog to when, all the data that shows which user stories are being created, designed, developed by who, which ones are tested, which ones have tests that fail, which ones have already, what type of code maybe has been written for them, how the team is working together. In other words, a Turing bot that I call Dev Insights that looks at the overall software development lifecycle, including testing, but think of the power that not being siloed anymore, you start connecting all this data and you can really pull out some really interesting insights for the team to do better. What's the whole level of quality in that software development lifecycle? And we call those Turing bots, right? So basically, generative AI has brought a whole lot more into the software development lifecycle. But because your question and this session is around testing, what does it do to testing that we were not doing already with AI and ML? Well, here are a few things. So basically, of course, and anybody can try this out, right? If you've got access to ChatGPT, write some requirements, ask it to generate code. And then what you can do also, you can ask ChatGPT, okay, can you please generate some test cases for me for the code that you generated so that I can test the code in a functional way? And that's something that we were not able to do very well in the past. Now with natural language, it can be done. So from requirements, generate the test cases. From the test cases, we can generate the automation. We're starting to get the automation across all those steps. We can generate test models, right? If you train the large language model on your own, on the model that the tool uses. If we're thinking about a tool, the way you ask people to model their test cases, it will learn how to generate that. It can help also, of course, write down a test strategy and a test plan. You can give it prompts already. You can prompt it your existing test cases to optimize them. You can also ask for a strategy approach as well. Or reverse engineer from HTML or any type of code that we use on front ends to generate test cases from them, and the other way around, right? Issues, bugs. We talked about clustering. Of course, one issue clients tell me a lot about is that the language sometimes of the bugs that we find and the testers document for the developers is not always very clear. We waste time in understanding and synchronizing. Okay, I think I now have a good context besides the UI that you might cut and paste to support the issue. It's not enough. And now you can ask generative AI to actually clean up that language, complete it, summarize it, make it more effective so that the developer gets that as well, together with the image that you captured for the bug, and maybe is shortening now the time it takes to fix it, right? So this is just the starting off. I mean, the list can go on and on, but you can see now that we're really raising the bar of what we can do thanks to AI in testing. But the other important thing is that even the technology, the tools, right? Even using these testing tools, it's not always easy for clients. They have to learn. There's training time. Right. You can make it easy to use, but think about now adding that to that easiness, a natural language interface where I can ask the tool, the testing tool, to come up with that strategy plan, to come up with the test cases, to come up with the automation, and I can query it in natural language. It makes the use of the tool much easier, right? And so, and I think that's something that we're going to see in most of the tools that exist out there in the market.
To me, it looks quite fascinating, and it also, it brings a thought into my mind, like what will happen to the traditional application world. Like if it's going to be based on natural language, it's kind of ask me anything. You know, you don't really need to go and work for the application. You can just say, okay, please help me to optimize my current test scripts, or can you suggest the right test based on the code that I did? So I think, you know, if this technology, you know, after training it, of course, you know, and getting thumbs up about hours and days and weeks of practice, this is on a go of, in your view, to autonomous testing. Like it can complete the vision of, you know, a test that can be written by itself and go and test the software.
Well, I think I don't think AI is at that level yet, because even these large language models, right? They're leveraging what they've learned and what we've had out there.
Yeah.
What they're not yet extremely good and good enough on is the reasoning, coming up with the goals themselves, setting those goals. I mean, that's, you know, that requires some human creativity still. Will the tasks become more autonomous? Yes. And we will be able to get more tasks done, glued together in an autonomous approach? Yes. But still, I think the supervision of humans is still going to be there. In Forrester, we say, and I really strongly believe this, is it's not humans in the loop, it's AI is in the loop, because humans need to be in control of it, right? We are the ones that will call the Turing bot to write, you know, to optimize the requirement, to then maybe, you know, and instead of calling it 3-4 times, I can ask it to do a bit of a broader job, but it's under my control. I'm going to have to review that. When people say, you know, in the coding space, for example, code generation, we still need to test that code. That's why I said at the beginning, if you remember, testing is going to increase.
Right.
Why? Because we need to test that code. We need to review that code, security tests, unit tests, functional tests, all that has to happen.
Testing is not going away. Testing is not going away. We just
increasing. It's increasing. It increased with DevOps. It increased with DevOps, right? And it's going to increase with the more people use these Turing bots that I just discussed. Testing will increase. That's why we also need AI in testing itself,
right?
Because we need to become smarter in the way we do it, right? So the way we test will change. It will be more accelerated, but it won't go away.
Okay, so again, testing is not going away, and I think that this is a great segue to my next question. You know, we talked about testing challenges and its complexity. We talked a little bit about the importance of shift left and becoming more agile. We spoke briefly on the rise of AI and GenAI and I would say the great opportunity around it. But still, again, if I got it, your view and Forrester view, and as you like to say, as Forrester like to say, testing takes a village, meaning that we still have a lot of developers, testers, business analysts, and end users involved in the testing. And we know it also as well from Panaya clients that, you know, some of them might be very technical, some of them might not be technical at all, but all of them are required. All of them are required to collectively contribute, I would say, to the success of enterprise testing initiatives. And with that being said, how do you see it, Diego, from your point of view, like how organizations can foster a better culture of collaboration among such a diverse stakeholders that need to be involved in testing?
Well, first of all, I mean, just to kind of dig a little bit deeper into that statement of testing takes a village, right? These are the 3 clusters of personas, and of course, you know, they overlap a bit, and you might find personas that are kind of in between, perhaps. But these are the 3 main clusters that we recognize, right? You've got the business testers, and especially for packaged apps, right? That's where maybe mostly packaged apps will have to lean on, right? It's to serve mostly those business testers that today create or customize SAP applications, or create and customize, you know, even applications on ServiceNow and so forth, right? So those are what we call, especially for the ERP world, right? SAP, Oracle, and Salesforce, and Workday. the business tester has no coding skills, is mostly a subject matter expert, business subject matter expert. And therefore, when he tests, he thinks business. He needs to come up with the right data, right? That you want to test. There's an upgrade with SAP.
It's about business flow.
Business flow, business process, exactly, right? Technology adverse. Well, today, I guess it's hard to say that anybody is technology adverse. We all have iPhones and lovely technology, but doesn't like coding. Let's put it that way. Uses capabilities that tools offer that are quite often things like record and replay, or what we call scriptless, perhaps, right? In the world of coding, we say low code, right? In the world of testing, we say scriptless, but scriptless is equal low code if you want. And the question is, he needs to automate too, but we have to give them the right tools, the level of abstraction that is good for him. Then you've got the technical subject matter expert tester, right? Which is the traditional kind of tester that has been doing manual for quite some time, perhaps. Is the subject matter expert around testing, around the strategies of testing, around what is it that we should test first, or what is it that we need to automate, and perhaps here we still need to leave a little bit of manual, which is kind of in between business and developer and is quite technical, can understand, and basically can talk to both. It can talk business, can talk tester. It's an important role. It's a very important role, and kind of drives mostly the testing work, typically in agile teams. And then you've got the developer testers, and developer testers really like to sit and stay in their IDE using a programming language, maybe APIs, right? They don't like high-level scripting. They don't like these replay and record and replay. They just want to code, right? That's what they want to code testing. This is, again, functional testing, maybe orchestrating different APIs and so forth. So if you look at those three clusters, we often have to accommodate a new inhabitant, right? The Mr. what we call tester Turing bot that you saw, that I showed you a minute ago. In other words, in the village, you'll start seeing, right, also robots moving around that are testers. But it's important because actually this will, of course, kind of, humans have to learn how to collaborate, how to leverage these new inhabitants, let's say. And that's, of course, where AI comes in. And in order for this to really make it work, especially if we're talking, business package, there's a new role for test management, right? There's a new role for test management that goes from a traditional role we had where it was mostly managing resources because we had centralized test centers. We no longer have these centralized test centers. Test centers are now federated. You've got a small team centrally. You've got the testers executing inside the development teams, inside the business teams. And so test management is not, and the resources in those teams are managed in the team. They're not managed anymore centrally by someone. And so you don't need what the traditional quality centers would do, right? Not only there's automation, there's execution of the tests, which are happening now in an integrated environment with CI/CD, and no longer maybe in a test management tool or separately somewhere else, right? So there's a whole shift in how test management these days is evolving to, right? It's an environment which fosters collaboration between those different testing personas, but also between those testing personas, the Turing bots, and the rest of the stakeholders, the developers, the business analysts. So has to enable that collaboration, offering a workspace to make that transition through one role to the other happen. I can actually play even a couple of roles. I can be a tester, subject matter expert, which goes from, testing some user interface, but also I might need to do some API testing, and I can smoothly do that thanks to the workspace. But also I might have to do a little bit of performance. Perhaps I need to know about performance without having deep expertise in performance testing. that workspace will allow me to kind of automate all the different steps of my AI, of my tests.
There is a need to expand the umbrella of skills here to cover performance, to cover more, I would say, disciplines under testing. So,
Yeah.
so Diego, a very quick one, something that is coming from the chat box about what you just said. So, if you can relate to what needs to happen in your view to better engage business users for user acceptance testing, because business user understand, as you mentioned, the business flow and business process, which probably the more the dev tester has no visibility to that. So if you can share some of your tips of what to better engage them into the testing process.
Well, the business tester, first of all, needs an environment. And this is where the technology also plays a role, right? It has to be easy to use.
Easy to use.
That's number one. Easy to use, usable. Otherwise, the business tester is going to keep using Excel sheets and doing manual testing. There has to be also this collaboration that we talked about, right? He has to be the business user has to be able to collaborate with the rest of the team in an easy way. There has to be a communication conduit between the rest of the team and the business person. The level of abstraction has to be right. We talk about acceptance testing these days, right? We start with describing the acceptance, the business criteria right away from the beginning, right? That's kind of part of that shift left that we talk about. And that becomes also very important. Has to be able to have data. You have to be able to do all that, pull together the data that is needed, the business data that the business tester will primarily look at. It won't be writing code. He will be, or she will be putting together, okay, so you upgraded SAP. Here's my business data. Let me see if everything is okay. Run it through the new solution. And so test data management, right? Capability in the platform is important for that. So there's and the experience also for that tester from an experience perspective, the usability, I said ease of use, but usability is very important. These are all qualifications that we need to look at. And by the way, if you look at the data today, I do a wave every year where I evaluate platforms, continuous automation testing platforms. Well, what comes from the data is that the current tools do very well with the developer, do very well with the tester, right? But the business tester, that's where there needs to be improvement. Very few tools are addressing that space in a much better way than we used to do, right? Most of the tools are focused on the developer tester and the testing tester, but the business tester needs more. And I think that with that AI, with the machine, natural language, we're going to be able to do that in a much better way. And so that they will work faster and better.
Absolutely. We see exactly that trend that you mentioned, keeping it easy to use, the experience, the data, that is always a challenge, to make sure that the business data is up to date. So good stuff around that. So, Diego, in my role as CEO, besides talking to sales, my internal teams on a weekly basis, I also have the opportunity to talk to many of our clients, obviously analysts and business partners, I would say quite frequently. And something that I see pretty common among all of them is the time invested in testing versus the actual risk of not testing or testing less, which, I will frame it as the test coverage. So, there are different approaches on how to take the risk. Do we need to test everything? Do we need to take some calculated risk? Do we need to use some platforms to tell us what to test and etc.? So, we at Panaya came up with the change intelligence, which I see many other vendors also follow this concept of change impact analysis, which in simple words tell you how to do smart testing, which is based on, what is going to break as a result of a business change that you are about to do. Based on that, to tell you exactly what to test, which is a risk-based testing. And The next step will be also to tell you what to automate. So I'm curious, in your view, besides solutions like change intelligence or change impact analysis, an infusion of AI and machine learning, which is obvious, we are going to see more and more. What other steps, or I would say, what kind of steps organizations should take for a successful modernization of their testing capabilities, given their complex mix of bespoke software packages and etc.?
Well, let me say one thing first. I mean, you mentioned this risk, risk calculated risk and risk-based testing and all that.
Yeah.
Well, what I've been seeing most has been in the past is, and still many tools, unless they have the capability that you just talked about, is we make risk is basically an intuition, right? Is more a human intuition than anything else. But now with AI and with data, it can be a real calculated risk, right? It can be well calculated. So that's important. You mentioned something that I haven't put in the slides, but is very important. I totally agree with that. So I guess your question is around how can they stay aligned with all the change that is needed ongoing, right? And I actually had some of that in this platform test management approach, but I really wanted to kind of talk a little bit about this as well, which is, change is kind of part of at the heart of Agile, at the heart of working in this new modern way. Change is no longer an escalation that has to happen, but it's part of the process. And so therefore, on one side, you've got Agile that introduced and has broken down the wall between business and development teams, right? With an enjoyable experience that is like driving a Ferrari. But that Ferrari cannot be enjoyable if you don't have the Agile infrastructure. We can't automate tests. We can't automate the delivery if we don't have the automation in the architecture, in the infrastructure. And so it's just like the analogy that I'm making, that it would be very boring to drive a Ferrari on winding roads that are broken, roads that are not, comfortable enough and safe enough, and you have to drive at 30 kilometers an hour. With a Ferrari, it would be that the car would object, would go on strike. Wow. Right? And so it's very important that we do this Agile and DevOps transformation together, because we need a common language. We break down the wall, the silos between operations, and business and development, having a common language. It's that necessary common language that DevOps brings to the table, and that enables this change, continuous change, this fast, continuous change. And, in the real world, it's like having these beautiful cars, having the beautiful roads, but not having signs that the two can communicate through, right? It would be absolutely impossible to drive a car and, not recognize the signs, what the signs are telling us danger ahead in 100 meters, you have to turn right, be careful, slow down, there's a bridge or whatever. If we didn't understand all that, it would be a big problem, right? So this enables the change. And so, to kind of wrap it up, what I recommend doing with clients, we've said a lot of things, right? But and of course, continuous testing is right in the middle of all this, right? It's a first-class citizen. But to wrap it up, I would like to kind of just give some 4 key steps, right? First of all, we do need to be more dynamic, and we need to be smart. In other words, use AI that can make us smarter. It is important to have, I talked a little bit about this concept of federated governance, of not centralized testing and not totally distributed, but federated testing. That's very important, right? There's a skills. We have to upgrade skills. We have to learn the new practices of shifting left. If you remember the slide on the practices, still manual testing is too much. We absolutely have to focus on data-driven testing, which is enabled by AI and generative AI. Mm-hmm. That's going to be also happening with the use of new technology. So we have to think about the new technologies that we need to bring to the table, right? Technologies that will include these new platforms and products that will include these new technologies especially for the world of packaged app testing, from DevOps all the way to testing, you know, those platforms need these capabilities. And so, yeah, I think clients are probably, many of them are on the journey of doing this. Others, you know, if not, I would urge them to start soon.
Okay, that's a great wrap up of the 4 key steps. So thank you very much, Diego. If you can stop share, I will pull out some questions for chat box, like we can quickly address those. So, okay, there are many questions about AI, but I think we kind of touched it. I would say there is an interesting question here about how do you see the codeless automation trend or approach versus the coded approach evolving for ERP and packaged applications? And if there is a scenario that they can live side by side in the same organization, or we need, you know, for the business users, we need low-code tools, and for the technical, we need different tools.
Well, you know, pre-Gen AI, I would have said, yes, you need different tools. But actually, in some cases, or a tool that offers the different options, that's what we really need, right? A tool that addresses, you don't need necessarily a different tool for each one, because customers don't want different tools. They don't, but you know, that slide around a platform approach, right? I talk about platform approach is like one environment which offers everything that I need for testing. That's important. Now, generative AI has also added an additional opportunity now, because I don't think it's going to pull away business people from wanting low code or no code type of tools or scriptless. I think that's going to stay. But now AI is just adding even an additional help for them, right? But it's also helping the coders, because while coders don't like scriptless tools, they don't mind the code generation tools, because it's just making their life easier and faster. So I would say any organization has these different clusters of personas that we talked about, right? They don't just have one type. There might be some specific organizations that build specific applications and they're all technical. Okay. But if you take a bank, take an insurance, take a, you know, an automotive company, they will have pockets with different needs, different types of applications, business package applications. They will have custom applications as well. They want to test all of that, right? And so I would say there won't be just one type of persona. There will be multiple types. The tools will become more powerful to enable them all and make it easier for them to collaborate.
Okay. That's great. So thank you for that. I will we'll try to recap. Thank you, Diego, for all this, I would say, exciting discussion that we had. We can go long for another hour easily, but it's
easier.
I'm getting the signals that we need to wrap up. So just very quickly, kind of, you know, wrap it up from Panaya standpoint. You know, we have one platform for all the testing needs. I think we talked about the testing complexity. So this is traditionally the test management in Panaya. The CIA, which is, I would say, we are perfecting the impact analysis for the last, I would say, 16, 17 years with packaged applications like SAP, S/4HANA, Salesforce, Oracle, EBS, Oracle Cloud. And also, as you can, as the audience can see also on the right-hand side, any other business packaged application is also supported. Like we mentioned, ServiceNow, Workday can be here as well. And as Diego referred to it as well, I think that we will see more and more multi-platform and cross-platform scenarios. And it doesn't make sense to buy or to have a dedicated platform for each and every scenario. I will skip that one for due to lack of time. And my last slide is about the codeless convenience that we bring. And I fully agree with the segmentation of the personas that were provided by Diego. I think that there are different types of users, and something that we are very proud of is the ability to onboard new clients within less than an hour. This is something that we have as a target. Number two is the AI core power, which we see more and more. I think, the what to test and what to automate will become default very soon. And we will see more AI and Gen AI leveraging that across organization, across clients. App excellence is to understand exactly, what is going on within the business flows, within the business processes. And this is how we relate to ERP and other business applications. I think that testing here is testing needs will increase, stating 𝐷𝐸𝐺𝐸 earlier this hour, and something that we are looking into, I would say, in very cautiously, is to provide the fast lane to automation, making sure that we are able to take existing assets like manual tests, give scoring to them, and push them towards automated testing. We see many customers that are trying to start with automation, and they are coming with big ambitions, like, we need to be by end of the year with at least 75% of automation. But always, I would say the starting point is always complex. How do we start? What are we doing with all the assets that we have? So I think this type of capabilities of creating this lane to automation, taking all the existing assets of the organization and telling them what to automate based on AI, based on scoring that we can provide, is really helpful. And last but not least, we are talking about all-in-one platform. It's SaaS by definition from the day that we were born at 2006. Panaya is software as a service, and I think it's a huge advantage today in terms of the adoption, in terms of testing the platform and starting to use that. So with that, I would like to say big thank you again to 𝐷𝐸𝐺𝐸 from Forrester. It's been fascinating to learn the testing trends and to have this discussion. I think many of our audience find this insightful, and as I mentioned earlier, it will be available on the Panaya website. So thank you very much. Grazie, and have a great day, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, David. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.